All right, let's do a part 2 on Sun conjunct Chiron in Aries. Sun conjunct Chiron in Aries in opposition to full moon Libra. Full moon Libra. Let's look into what it means. Understand? Let's look into what it really means. I could go on and on this topic, on the subject matter, but the more questions I get, the more I can go in depth and know where to meet you at. Shout out to Pluto Vision for presenting the question that definitely prompted me to take the responsibility to present these details. Now, what we have to know about the full moon Libra is that the full moon Libra is culminating Blackmoon Lilith's transit through Libra. Blackmoon Lilith. Blackmoon Lilith takes 9 months to go through a house or sign. 9 months. So every 9 months, Blackmoon Lilith has this baby per se. And Venus is going direct at the same time that we have this full moon. And with Venus going direct out of retrograde at the same time that we have this full moon, it puts the moon and Venus in synchronicity. There's a common objective that they're accomplishing for us. But what's the reference point to what has to be considered? We have to reference everything back to what we were learning, what we were addressing, overcoming, solving, figuring out, harmonizing, which is keyword for Libra, what we were harmonizing concerning Blackmoon Lilith's transit through Libra. This was the same case with full moon Virgo. These are closures of these transits. We're closing out what we were experiencing concerning it. Now, being that Venus was in retrograde during this time, Venus in retrograde gives us access to past themes, past situations, experiences, circumstances, so on. And that's what highlights Blackmoon Lilith in particular. That's what makes it significant to Blackmoon Lilith's journey through Libra. And let me give you a time period where you can reference. Blackmoon Lilith entered Libra June 29th, 2024. That is June 29th, 2024. It completed Libra after 9 months, March 27th, 2025. That is March 27th, 2025. So, from June 29th, 2024 to March 27th, 2025, this is when Blackmoon Lilith was going through Libra. And what Blackmoon Lilith does at that time is she takes away our complacency. She confronts our complacency with finding resolution for any shadow aspects to that energy. And shadow aspects to Libra could look like, for example, I lack harmony in my life. Therefore, how can I harmonize? I lack balance. Therefore, how can I create balance? There has to be negotiation. There has to be fairness. The overall theme with Libra is justice, the scales. I'm not seeing fairness. I'm not seeing justice. I'm not seeing equality. I'm not seeing what is reasonable. Any of the 42 laws of Ma'at we have to consider as well. Where we ourselves or someone else is in violation to these codes within our reality. The basis of the Libra reality, you have to refer that back to your Libra house. According to your natal birth chart, where do you have Libra? Which house does Libra occupy in your natal birth chart? This will give you the context for where at in your life, what themes in your life were you trying to harmonize? Were you seeking to find balance, the give and take, fairness, a sense of justice? The other crisis with that is finding our way out of public opinion, being tied up in public opinion, finding our way into independence from the charismatic person's opinions, the attractive person's ideas and opinions, the ideals of the pretty girl with the cell phone who's telling you wrong for right, good or bad, up from down. Listening to the charismatic person with the cell phone on Instagram or social media who could be corrupting your view of the world, your perceptions, your outlooks, your ideas, how you conclude matters. Coming out of the witch hunt in society, the witch hunts, where when another person reveals their shadow, we go on a witch hunt, only to come to find that we have the same shadows. This also was about realizing where in our life we were misled by feminism, where we were being misled by liberalism, how feminism and liberalism contaminated our sense of justice and judgment, how it corrupted our opinions, our views, our perception, our reasoning, how it possibly could be root cause or responsible for the creation of imbalances and disharmony in our life, unfairness, unresolved matters. Libra is also the first of the three courts. Should I say four courts? No, three courts. The first of the three courts. Libra represents the court of the people, public opinion. Scorpio represents the court of the instincts, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Sagittarius represents the courts of heaven, God's divine law, his justice that nothing and no one escapes. If you look at, for example, anytime something hits the headline, public opinion will say one thing, our instincts will say one thing, and God will ultimately determine something possibly entirely different as what justice should look like. That's how that works. There are three courts. So we were dealing with the court of public opinion. What was our position in the court of public opinion? How do we relate to the court of public opinion and the witch hunts that people go on concerning public opinions? Flying off of a limb, not having all the information, racism, party affiliations, wanting to be wrathful, judgment or condemning based on a person's demographics, backgrounds, or fears that we harbor, projecting that outwards. So in your personal life, what this can look like is you're not balanced. Somewhere you're leaning too far into, you're too far vested in something that's taking away from your investment in yourself. You're doing too much somewhere, or you're doing too little in another place. You can't be everywhere at once. You cannot prioritize everything. You have to learn how to determine value so that you know how to assign priority. And that goes under Venus. Venus is how we determine where value is at according to the Taurus algorithm. What is valuable and how valuable is it? Let's take as an example, because Virgo is at the South Node, we have to look at this in the context of Virgo over the next 18 months, and that would be your sixth house. Your sixth house. And the sixth house is how we meet our day, our daily formula, our daily routine. So when we culminate all this together, it's about us finding and prioritizing in order where the value is at. And that gives us an insight into how we can prioritize the assignments, the objectives, the goals, the checkpoints in the course of 24 hours. So let's say in your career or your job, they want you to work overtime all the time, take on this project, take on that project, but your kids are neglected, your health is neglected, you keep missing going to the gym, and now your health is deteriorating. You can't go and sit in that same spot every day and find your contentment, find your peace of mind, talk to yourself, connect with yourself, and you undervalued how important that is. You underestimated how important it was for you to show up at the gym every day at that time. You underestimated how important it was for you to sit at that park bench and watch the children play or play with the dog or just sit and, do what you do in that time to get yourself right. You underestimated how significant, how important that was, and you thought that getting that extra overtime was more important. You thought that those few extra dollars had greater value. But after 9 months, we realize, because of the culmination of the full moon, which is completion, we're realizing where value is at. That's what the Venus retrograde is about. And value to what? Value of my identity, value of what makes my identity, what sustains my identity, value of what completes who I really am, not who the job wants me to be, the people who are invested in the project, who they want me to be, my partner, what they need me to be or want me to be. There are many demands that are upon us from every corner. The career, the community, different projects, family members, loved ones, children, your wife, your husband, everything and anything. And, it wants your attention. It wants priority. It wants the best cut of you. It wants the prime cut. It wants top shelf. It doesn't want your leftovers. It wants the best of you. But because Venus is going retrograde through Aries and Pisces, it's helping us to home in on where the value is at in the identity, where the value is at in the personal reality of the self. Where's the value at in the self? Not in the job or not in other demands that people have upon us. So Venus goes retrograde through that to give us insight into what we experienced through the Blackmoon Lilith retrograde at Libra. It's bringing it to the forefront, allowing us to go into the past to see what we went through in testing those theories. Okay, could this be more important? Could that be more important? What's really important to you? What keeps you sane? What keeps you peaceful? What keeps you harmonious within the self? What gives you a peace of mind? What makes you feel emotionally fulfilled and secure and successful? And we all have learned that it's not money. It's not money. No amount of money can make up for you missing the gym. No amount of money can make up for you not getting enough sleep. No amount of money can make up for the fact that if you don't get to sit at that park bench every day and watch the dogs run, the birds fly, and the kids play and laugh, you're no good to yourself. There's a formula that you have, that you're supposed to have, that pours right back into you. And every time you give proper estimation to those valuable experiences, those valuable connections that you have, you find out that you show up as the best version of yourself. But when you neglect yourself, you show up as the worst version of yourself. You're snapping at people, you're going off, you're getting sick, your immune system breaks down, you're always sniffling and sneezing, right? You can't remember anything, you're unorganized, you look terrible, you got bags under your eyes, you resent getting up every day, you're unhappy, you're making the money, you're part of the business, you're going through the routine, but you're disconnected from life in and of itself. It's like you're a zombie. So that 9 months was to teach us how to find the sweet spot, how to find the balance, how to harmonize, how to put the scales back into perspective here, calibrate this thing correctly. And it's about what we see value in. What and who do you see value in? And value is not money. Okay? Second house is not the house of money. It's the house of provision, personal provision. But personal provision is not equal to money. It includes money. It includes that. It's a house of personal values. And values as in your principles, and also values as in those things, persons, and experiences that you cherish, that you take value in. It's what that is. Right? So whatever that is, you can't stray from your blueprint. You cannot go astray from your blueprint. Virgo indicates 3 points. Okay? It's the Earth triangle. It's part of the Earth triangle. The 6th house is what builds the 10th house, and the 10th house gives fall to the 2nd house. So if your 6th house doesn't have the right priorities in it, which starts with self as the highest priority, your health as the highest priority, your mental health as the highest priority, your hygiene as the highest priority, then when at the 10th house, you're not going to be the person that you're destined to be. At the 10th house, you're going to look like an old beat up car. Or you could look like a really nice car with a blown out engine. That's all you're going to get. So this brings us back to honoring the self, prioritizing self, self-preservation first is what this is all about. Did we learn how to do that? There's certain people around you that shouldn't be around you. People that you give time to that you shouldn't give time to. People that you prioritize that maybe you shouldn't. You may have found out that some were distractions. Some were secret enemies. You may have found out that because of these imbalances, it only brought inflammation to the Cancer-Mars transit. And the Cancer-Mars transit was already, an inflammatory spot. And when there's inflammation, there's pain. Is it not? Okay? That's what pain is. It's a sign or signal of inflammation in the body. And with that inflammation, we could get an inaccurate read. I don't feel emotionally secure. I don't feel emotionally whole. I don't feel like there's any advocacy in my favor. But really what it amounts to is look how much you neglect yourself. Look how much you put yourself second or last. Look how much you prioritize everything except for your well-being. So walking back through that is essential. And these are things that we cannot forget going forward. Every North Node, South Node transit, we go through 2 Black Moon transits. Through 2 houses and 2 signs. Okay? Every 18 months. The last North Node, South Node transit was Virgo, Libra, which was in accordance with North Node Aries, South Node Libra. Virgo and Libra. So now what we're about to go through is the 18-month transit of North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo, in which there would be 9 months at 9 months at Scorpio, and then 9 months at Sagittarius. Black Moon Lilith, that is. So there are different factors that drive us to neglect ourselves, that puts us in crisis where we're not able to measure properly, determine properly, or judge properly where value is at. If we're caught up in the South Node Libra crowd, where the comment section and the pretty girls, the charismatic guys, is what tells you what's valuable and what's not valuable, what's important and what's not important, you've gotten away from the soul and you've gotten into illusions. We can't get away from the soul when it comes to determining what is valuable or not to us. Okay. So we have to get back to actual value, real value, true value, not what the popular people are telling you is valuable, because they have a miserable interpretation, which boils down to money, consumption, material, expenses, illusions, which really is a lot of suffering from low self-esteem and detachment from the soul. So when we get to review where real value is at, we start to really treasure what makes us peaceful, what makes us harmonious, what makes us happy, content, restful, what makes us feel safe and secure. These could even be behaviors. There's certain behaviors that we put on to make other people happy. Personality traits. There's certain choices that we make and where we spend our time, where we spend our money, or how we spend our money. The company that we keep. The projects and commitments that we sign up for. And just as I was mentioning before, the overtime may be on the table and you keep taking it, thinking that it's going to get you ahead. But how do you get ahead with neglecting yourself? How do you get ahead with overlooking how valuable it is to take care of yourself in comparison to a few extra bucks? How do we get ahead in doing that? So that reality check has to kick in where we start to see, you know what, I'm not doing this no more. I can't do this no more. It's overwhelming. I'm unhappy. It's just not worth it. And that's the full moon Libra that's given us the burden or the crisis that brings us to the clear conclusion, which is wisdom finally. And that wisdom is, although on paper or by written word, it may make sense that I should do this or I should do that. To the soul, it doesn't make sense, because the soul has to be taken into consideration also. Matters of the heart have to be taken into consideration. And this is giving acknowledgement. This is giving acknowledgement to spiritual forces, spiritual realities, not pretending like it's not there. Because when we take the spiritual part of ourself and we pretend like it's not real, like it's not a part of who we are or the basis of who we are, we neglect that portion in and of itself, and that is the source of the self. And when you neglect the source of the self, you're no good to yourself or anybody else. You're the worst. You're the worst version of yourself. You have abandoned your inner child at that point. You have neglected your inner child at that point. Okay? So what this climbs up to is incorporating a deep connection with the inner child, giving acknowledgement to the inner child, and keeping that promise with the inner child. I will never leave you. I will never abandon you. I will never neglect you. I'm right here, and I will always be here. So we reestablish that connection with the inner child. And with the Mars at the 28th, 29th degree, as all of this is taking place, it shows that it's a conclusion. It's a wrapping up. It's a closure. It's a sealed deal with the inner child that, yes, I have secured you now. You are now safe and secure. And this goes back to, for example, in Arabic terms, that is the word salam, right? Assalamu alaikum, right? Muslims say assalamu alaikum, which is may peace be upon you, right? Assalam, safety, security, right? Mu Islam or Muslim or Mu Islam, Mu being the predicate, it's an action word, it's a verb. It's someone who does a thing. Mu Islam, Mu Adhan, Mu Ahmed, you see. Mu Islam or Muslim is one who practices peace. This is how you practice peace. It's a person who submits their will to do the will of Allah, God, which is the will of Pisces. That is harmony and unison in all things. Understand? So this is practicing salam or peace. You prioritize and you value the inner child's needs. You do not overstep the inner child's needs. You do not put inner child in harm's way. You see, We put inner child in harm's way by repeating our vices, repeating our iniquities, repeating our sins over and over again, the things that keep bringing insecurity to the inner self, the things that keep violating the peace within the self, the things that keeps exposing us to spiritual harm, spiritual depth, karma, corruption, darkness, hardship, burden, putting ourselves through unnecessary things. And this could be something as simple as, that's not your wife. Why are you going to go and sleep with that woman? You're creating misfortune for yourself. That's not your husband. Why would you go and do that? Why would you go and create a child with somebody whose last name you don't even know? With somebody who you're not even married to? And later on, you suffer for the rest of your life. The child suffers, and we're creating these curses all over again. So this is also to learn not to put yourself in harm's way, not to subject others to harm, but to practice peace. And practicing peace is, I realize with my powers to create and co-create, I will not use my powers to do harm to myself. I will not use my powers to confuse myself, to bring crisis upon myself, to bring burden unnecessarily upon myself. I will not do that anymore. And that is to make peace with that inner child through Cancer. When Mars goes into Leo, we will learn how to amplify the voice of the inner child, the expression of the inner child, the behaviors of the inner child that wants to come forth through us, that wants to channel through us. That's what we would do when Mars enters Leo. It's about amplifying the voice and the expressions of the inner child, lifting the inner child up and making sure that the inner child has an impact on the world around us, that the inner child has permission and authority to utilize our being to make its expressions in the world. And that's when divine expressions channel through us. Understand? So this is something we want to think about concerning Blackmoon, Lilith, and the Chiron conjunct the Sun. With Chiron conjunct the Sun, there are pains, there are injuries that now we have enough illumination to see we can move forward from. And we also can draw strength from. Understand? Now, Libra, concerning the scales, Blackmoon, Lilith, as I'm talking about this retrograde with Venus, how have our relationship with our finances and relationship with others and the connections that we had with things that bring us pleasure, joy, or rest, where have we gone a little too far and fallen into addictions or coping mechanisms? Okay, addictions and coping. Okay, working too much on the clock at the job, that could be an addiction or a coping mechanism for the crisis that you're afraid to address. Okay, things such as creating all types of drama with your significant other, okay, your husband, your wife, or whatever. This could also be a way of you dealing with inner child issues. That's for you to deal with and heal, but you're making it somebody else's burden and responsibility, projecting instead of really getting down to it. So we really got to sift through it and not be lazy. We can't be lazy with this. We got to sift through it. Let me give an example. I put these messages up there, and quite a few people will listen to it. But every now and then, someone will ask a question. And for the one who asks question, that's a person who's seeking an understanding. You can't tell me that out of all the videos I put up, you're just going to listen to it. Oh, okay, I don't got no questions. Impossible. You don't want to ask questions. You don't want to seek the understanding. Oh, I got it. That's enough. Yeah, I get it. We can't be lazy with this. We have to really want the understanding. And the one who really sincerely wants it is the one who gets it. And that's the one who gets to be free. That's the one who gets to have peace. That's the one who doesn't have to deal with so much of the shadow work of these things, because there's so much transparency with the self, resilience with the self to really get in it and say, I want to understand this. I really need to know this for myself. Are we there yet to where we really want to understand and know what it's about? If you're not asking questions, no, you don't want to understand. You're assuming. And you're hoping that you can stay in the dark long enough or deep enough in the dark to where the bliss can last a little bit longer. I know, because I was that way too. There's bliss in the darkness because you feel like you've escaped obligation to make change. But I'm here to tell you, you're only exposing yourself. You're only making it more complicated for yourself. And you're going to want to blame somebody. You're going to want to be a victim. Let's really seek to understand. Fairness was another thing, okay? Blackmoon Lilith was addressing so much of what the gripe was with Cancer Mars, okay? Much of what we were crying about with Cancer Mars had to do with sense of injustice and imbalance and disharmony of Libra. Where is Libra at in your natal birth chart? That place right there, injustices and balances and such, okay? Now, you have to look at your Gemini placement to know where it was projected at, okay? Your Libra placement tells you where it was sourced from, where that perception came from, where it rooted from, the perception of injustice, the perception of imbalance, the perception of disharmony. It came from where Libra occupies your natal chart. It's projected where you have Gemini in your natal birth chart. Where do you have Gemini in your natal birth chart? That is the house where it's projected outwards and you see it in other people projected back to you as a reflection of how your perception is cast, you see? And that's opportunity for you to heal it through the waters of Pisces, which Venus went from Aries back into Pisces, okay, to deal with that, to help you in reflecting back from Pisces, okay? Because Pisces is what helps you to access the projection between a sign and the house that it's in and the house sign that it's projected in, you see? So wherever you have Libra, that's where it started, okay? And Gemini is, happens to be where it could have been projected in ethereal terms. You also have to look at as well the house that you have Libra. What is the sign of that house? Okay. For example, if you have Libra in the second house, it was projected at Taurus. Okay. If you have Libra at the fourth house, it was projected at Cancer. If you have Libra at the 10th house, it was projected in Capricorn. If you have Libra in the 11th house, it's projected in Aquarius. If you have Libra at the 7th house, it's projected in Libra. Okay. So wherever house that Libra was in, the Lord of that house, as well as the algorithm of that house, which is the zodiac sign, that's where it gets projected to. If you're confused about that, you can ask the question down below, according to your natal birth chart, and I will help you to clarify it sharply. Understand? Okay, so let's look at this detail also. With Venus going through Aries in retrograde, take into consideration what are the natural enemies to your first house, okay? What's the natural enemy to your first house? Your first house sign and planets, that is, okay? So whatever signs and planets that you have at the first house, you want to consider the natural enemies. For example, let's say you have Leo at the first house. Jealousy and envy is a natural enemy, okay? So jealousy and envy could be a very big part of the injustices and unfairness that you've been dealing with. You see, things of that nature, secret enemies and secret competition. Libra, it could be emotional codependence, things of that nature. People taking advantage of you for what you have, you understand, or for the convenience that you provide out of your compassion and the viscosity of your personality, understand. Scorpio, it could be matters of trust, betrayal, things of that nature. And because you are anticipating this distrust and betrayal, it's what you happen to perceive in an amplified manner through the other person's behavior. You're interpreting things to be very deeply much about the themes of treachery, understand, and betrayal. So the first house enemy is what you have to consider. The enemy is not a person, it's an energy. an energy that lacks illumination. So what does your sign at the first house look like when it lacks illumination, when it lacks light, when it is in shadow or detriment? Okay, those are the energies that you're picking up from other people who were giving you the reality of unfairness, injustice, and balance, in which you were trying to compensate for that by overextending yourself, compensate that by silencing yourself, compensate that by abusing yourself, neglecting your inner child, or sacrificing your inner child in order to preserve the harmony and peace, instead of digging in and really working it out the honest way, which is to have resilience. And with that resilience, what we end up finding every time is that most of the enemies were simply ourselves, not the other people. It was perceptions that we were holding. It was past life or early childhood traumas that we were living out through the behaviors of other people, and we had to come to heal that. So it brought us back to ground zero with the fourth house in Cancer, okay, which is why I keep emphasizing we have to heal what single motherhood has done to our psyches, understand? So with that being said, if you have questions about that, feel free to ask. If it's not a long explanation, I will be happy to answer and clarify.